Welcome back, everybody. As it turns out, Donald Trump, the narcissistic, pathological liar who called himself the peace president, who was going to take us out of the era of war for the United States, wasting our tax dollars on bombing other countries or whatever. Well, unsurprisingly, he was lying about that too, and within less than a year of his second term, Donald Trump seems to be speedrunning, getting us involved with another war. And it would be a war with the country pretty close to home as well, that being Venezuela. He's decided that the government of Venezuela, Maduro's regime, which is granted pretty bad, is effectively a terrorist organization, as they are... I don't know how much of what Trump has said is actually true, but what I do understand of Venezuela is that there are serious problems with, like, crime organizations basically getting away with everything. Like, the government is fairly corrupt, the policing is fairly corrupt. It doesn't seem like anybody of the right mind likes Venezuela's current regime. Unfortunately, the number one opposition candidate to the currently leading party is a full-tilt fascist, who is also a big fan of Trump, like full-on hard-right fascist. So right now, Venezuela is between a rock and a hard place, and Donald Trump wants to start a war with them. Now, most people recognize it's because Venezuela's got oil. Yeah, we all know America loves its oil. We go to war over oil. But a lot of people are also pointing out that Donald Trump is trying to use this as an excuse to engage in direct open hostilities towards South America for his perceived idea that it is South American countries engaging in open acts of war with America by not immediately eliminating all forms of cartel activity, just however they need to do so, I guess. And so with that in mind, I've got a video here that's going to go down all of the details of the news that's coming out over the potential imminent war we are about to be in with Venezuela. Donald Trump has been striking and bombing Venezuelan boats and ships out of the ocean, claiming that they are drug smuggling or they contain organized criminals, people from organized crime or families or whatever, right? Like, it's some crazy stuff, okay? Donald Trump has lied to his supporters once again. Not only is the economy fucked, not only are jobs nowhere to be seen, not only has cracking down on immigration not resulted in any of the positives that he promised, but on top of that, now the peace thing that he ran on, not wasting our money and human American lives on pointless wars, he's now failed on that front too. It's not looking good for Donald Trump. And if you guys haven't been keeping up with the polling numbers, I'll go ahead and answer your question. Yeah, they're not looking good for Trump. They're looking really bad. His approval rating, really, it's dropping like a rock. With all that said though, let's get right into the news, but if you end up enjoying, leave a like and a comment. It really does help a lot. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want to see more, and join my fan Discord through the link down below. That said though, let's get right into it, guys. Midas Touch, give us the news.
Admiral Alvin Halsey, United States Navy, retired, departing.
The video you just saw and audio you heard is from the retirement of 4-star Navy Admiral Alvin Halsey, who was pushed out of his job as the head of Southcom because he refused to follow unlawful orders from Pete Hegseth, who demanded the war crimes that have transpired take place. The shooting of these fishing boats, the double strikes, the entire war crime operation or crime against humanity. And Alvin Halsey is now retired, replaced by people who are willing to go along with the Trump regime's war crimes. War is now all but inevitable between the United States and Venezuela, as Donald Trump wants to distract from the release of the Epstein files, which is supposed to take place.
Oh man, I never even considered that. But that's absolutely something Trump would do. He would totally start a war to distract America from the fact that he's a pedophile. He would do that. He is that shameless. But is that how desperate he is now, though? To have to do one of the most unpopular things you can do in this current political climate just to distract America from his history with a dead, incarcerated child sex trafficker? Like, is that truly how far he's fallen, that he has to do this to distract from that? That is the state of Donald Trump's political career. I think that speaks volumes that he's fallen so far.
Place on Friday, but we know Donald Trump's going to do anything in his power to obstruct, including launch a war. Also, Donald Trump's desire to distract from the fact that the MAGA Republicans are ripping away the health care of tens of millions of Americans, not offering any extension to the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is necessary to keep tens of millions of Americans on their Affordable Care Act plans.
I mean, the Republicans axing and gutting the ACA or Obamacare, as, you know, whenever it's a negative context the Republicans talk about it with, it's Obamacare. Whenever it's all about how, no, we're going to replace it with something better, we're not just going to get rid of it, then it's the ACA. Ever notice that? But, yeah, the Republicans never planned to replace the ACA with a better, quote-unquote, program or system. The Republicans don't believe in socialized healthcare. Why would they ever be in favor of that? The only reason why they claimed they didn't want to gut the ACA was because it was so popular and so many Americans would lose their healthcare coverage and it would be an instant political suicide. But now they're in power and they absolutely have their eyes on the ACA.
And Donald Trump's desire to cosplay this authoritarianism that he admires in Vladimir Putin. And so Putin's denazification invasion of Ukraine, not too dissimilar from Donald Trump saying, you know, Venezuela has all of these drugs and they stole our oil and we need to reclaim our oil.
It's wild, by the way, that Trump just outright said it's about the oil. He must have no awareness whatsoever of meme culture around American foreign intervention over the last, 20 years in pop culture, because the second you mention America, war, and oil as the president, you've already lost. You've already lost the battle of convincing the American public that we have any reason to be getting involved in that conflict. You've said the quiet part out loud already, Trump. You can't do that. You're not supposed to say it's about the oil, man.
There's some differences, of course. Let me be very clear. Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, is indeed illegitimate. But that doesn't mean that I support regime change or that I support a full-scale war or war in general without...
I mean, ideally, the way that the U.S. would do this wouldn't be what Donald Trump's retarded ass is doing. We'd exercise soft power and try to nation build by, let's say a revolution, like a people's revolution, starts to build in Venezuela, a very possible and plausible thing. It would be the prerogative of the United States to support that revolution. Now, sometimes this goes well for the United States. It has in the past. Sometimes it goes terribly, and we end up just arming the next dictatorship or terror group. You know, it can go badly, but if Trump was smart, he'd be doing something like that, not actually unironically floating the idea of open war with Venezuela.
Being authorized by Congress, which is actually what's required by law. Now, Donald Trump posted the following. Before I read this post, just a reminder, hit subscribe to the Midas Touch YouTube channel. We're on our way.
Hell yeah, brother. Do that call to action. Get those subs. Get those likes. Makes all the difference these days, especially. I'm pretty confident YouTube's got, a right-wing bias now. And I don't think it's always had a right-wing bias. I think it especially has one since Trump took office. And all that news came out about how Trump forced Google to come out saying that they had a bias against conservatives under the Biden administration. I think now, behind the scenes, Trump has mandated that conservative content get boosted on YouTube. So yeah, support your favorite left-wing content. You know, not just me, but if you watch, other left-wing news or commentary or, video essay people, make it a habit to hit that like button, subscribe and comment. It makes a big, big difference.
To 6 million subscribers. And you know we're under attack from the Trump regime and state regime media.
Oh, I got it.
Fox.
I just killed a mosquito.
Please, if you can, hit subscribe and help us get to 6 million. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not be actually subscribed. So here's what Donald Trump writes. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger until such time as they return to the United States all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. What are you talking about? I'm ordering a total and complete block.
Donald Trump is a retard. He might have heard someone say something casually, hyperbolically in passing on Fox and Friends, and he might have started a war over it. Or he's just doing it to distract from the Epstein files. There is always that.
Blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into
He would know better than us if something big is about to come out.
and out of Venezuela, and he says a lot more, but he's ordering a blockade, installing this armada there, and essentially declaring war. I don't know how else you can describe that. Unlawfully declaring war. Again, I want to be clear about the facts. When it comes to Maduro being illegitimate, that's accurate. But drugs are not coming into the United States from Venezuela. Certainly fentanyl's not coming in from Venezuela. In fact, cocaine's not coming in to the United States from Venezuela. Now, you can criticize Venezuela for human rights abuses and other things, for sure. But that's a case that if you're going to make it to the American people and make it to Congress. And if you were to make that that's the reason for regime change and for American...
Nobody expects the Spanish Armada. Dude, imagine the U.S. blockade gets broken by none other than the Spanish. They come back to the Caribbean in full force, full naval force, and they break the blockade. We just straight up repeat of history. Repeat of the Spanish-English War in the Caribbean? Yeah.
To put boots on the ground and go to war. Sorry. I think we need a war right now. The American people are suffering right now, okay? And we got the data yesterday about job claims, and we see that unemployment ticked up to 4.6%. In terms of job losses over the past year, up 50.
Okay, now this is really important to keep in mind, by the way. Apparently, a lot of the institutions that report on economic data right now are coming out to say that due to Trump's mass gutting of federal workers, their counts are likely overestimates, meaning that the room for mistake in these numbers weighs towards overestimating how many jobs were created in this last period. So not only are the job numbers really, really low, but every source for these numbers is also adding the caveat that the numbers are probably even lower and that they're likely overcounting because they have incomplete data. So the numbers might actually be even worse than they look.
54%, 1.2 million jobs lost. That's like great recession numbers, right? Americans psychologically tortured.
I had friends asking, like, don't we have a recession coming? I'm like, guys, we're in the recession. Have y'all not been looking at the numbers? This is the recession. Like, the reason, like, all my homies are broke, and I'm like, y'all realize it's because we're in a recession right now, right? That, like, your wages are not keeping up with the cost of living, and it's happening everywhere across the board, and you're not really noticing it because it's so gradual, but, like, you're definitely feeling it, you know? Like, and like, I had a good few friends who have been like, man, everything's so expensive. I feel like I'm broke all the time right now. I'm like, y'all know we're in a recession right now, right? I had a friend say, isn't there, like, a recession predicted to be coming? And I'm like, it's happening, dog. We're in it.
Living paycheck to paycheck, can't afford rent right now. Things are less affordable. You're launching wars, talking about golden ballrooms, and you're hiding the Epstein files. Everything with this regime is hide, hide, hide. So Pete Hegseth, who's someone who's not admirable at all, who's responsible for Admiral Alvin Halsey, the four-star admiral, resigning, which you saw there at the outset.
Yep.
And then
oh my god, so many decorated, veteran, like, high-ranking military dudes who you can just look at and you can tell they're highly respected, highly experienced, and have probably done a lot for our country. So many of them have stepped down from their positions in our military, like their high-ranking federal military positions ever since Trump took office, because they know what's coming. They knew what it meant when word started getting around that Trump was going to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War. You know, people knew what that meant. People knew what Trump was getting at.
Hegseth has engaged in all of these war crimes. Remember when Donald Trump said that he was going to produce the video of the strike off the coast of Venezuela? The full video, not the part that they just cherry-picked to show The first part where the second part where they killed the survivors. Remember Donald Trump said he was fine releasing that? Well, now Pete Hegseth says that's not being released. Donald Trump says whatever Hegseth wants, and Hegseth's like, of course we're not going to release it. We can't talk about our sources and methods. We can't show you that. So you could only show the first part of the video, but not the second part of the video. What are these people talking about? Everything with them is hide, defraud. Here's what Hegseth.
I will say the Republicans have clearly been a little bit under pressure, or at least a lot under pressure, actually, because normally the Republicans are fully in attack mode, always on the attack against the left. And rarely do they ever have to be in defense mode. But man, it feels like this whole last 6 months, the right has not so much been in attack mode against the left, because there's not really a prominent left to attack anymore, online especially. But, like, they're really on the defense lately. You know, like, it's just the broader public is not happy with Trump. They're not happy with the current administration, and it's left the right to have to just be defensive against the broader public of Trump. It's not the left that they're having to defend Trump against. It's the general consensus opinion of people. I don't think a lot of you guys, if you don't follow the numbers and the polling and the approval rating stats, you guys might just have vibes to go off of. But if you feel like Trump is getting less popular, if it feels that way to you, look at the data. You will not be surprised. It's not just your vibes. The data backs it up. A lot of Trump supporters the spell is breaking for them, at least for now.
Said yesterday. So this is, again, think of that first image I showed you of Alvin Halsey, 4-star admiral, resigning, and then you have this Hegseth, this Fox weekend host, this person who couldn't run nonprofits for veterans without.
Pete Hegseth looks like an AI-generated person.
Screwing it up and being deemed utterly incompetent and unprofessional. And here he is disgracing us all. Let's play this clip.
Also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and...
Like, especially when he looks at the camera head on, you don't get it as much from the side view, but see if he looks straight at the camera in this video and tell me that his mom's womb wasn't ChatGPT or Sora, whatever you used to AI generate an image.
SASC to see the unedited video of the September.
So, see, like, come on. Like, he's got such a weird look to him. He looks like an AI-generated person that's not actually a real guy. You know what I mean?
Second, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course, we're not going to release a top-secret full unedited video of that to the general public. HASC and SASC and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
Damn. Those journalists are...
Look, our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, called it. He called it many, many days ago. Well, I think that Trump's dismal approval ratings and the Republican Party having no answers on health care and needing a big distraction as the deadline looms means it's time for Trump to invade Venezuela. And he was right. You also have Donald Trump trying to distract with...
Like, Trump's also got this very, like, disconnected, can't read the room, old school understanding of politics where he has any understanding at all. And one of the things he probably still believes is true is that wars are popular, or wars end up making presidents popular. And that used to be true, but has not been true for decades now. It has had the exact opposite effect ever since 9/11, the Patriot Act, and the Iraq War. So I think Trump is doing this believing that this could be a well-liked move, like something that'll make him popular, like in previous administrations. Without his, you know, the fact that Trump is so politically inept, he doesn't realize this is not what people like anymore. Wars do not make presidents popular in 2025. Hell, in the 21st century period, they don't make presidents popular.
Post like this: unreasonable search and seizure. That was the FBI's criminal raid on Mar-a-Lago. This can never be allowed to happen again. And then another person goes, someone should be arrested. Christopher Wray and Garland, former Attorney General Eric Garland. And Donald Trump goes, and many others, Donald Trump then
And
writes,
many others.
the Alvin Bragg case against Donald Trump is the worst case I've ever seen.
I wish you would read it in like a Donald Trump impression.
The Alvin Bragg case against President Donald J. Trump is the worst case I've ever seen in 62 years of practicing law in the United States of America. It was totally contrived, unfair, and unjust. It should not be allowed to stand, said Alan Dershowitz.
Seen in 62 years of practicing law in the United States of America. It was totally contrived, unfair, and unjust. It should not be allowed to stand. Alan Dershowitz. And this comes as we know from the Susan Wiles interview, or the 11 interviews she gave with Vanity Fair, that she said Trump's all over the Epstein files, that Trump has the personality of an alcoholic, that Pam Bondi whiffed on Epstein. Why I'm bringing up Epstein there is that Dershowitz would hang out at Epstein's home. Dershowitz got a massage there, but he says he had his boxers on the whole time. He said, don't.
It's always fun whenever there's just a lot of connections to all the creepy shit, you know, like Epstein's friends with so many people who also have photos with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Worry, and he says he doesn't like massages, and then he had his boxers on, and that's what his main point was there. Now,
he did not
Donald
inhale.
Trump also writes, and just makes this up, numbers released show that tariffs have reduced the trade deficit by more than half. This is larger than anyone except me projected. There's nothing true about this. Our deficit is...
Not only have they not affected the trade deficit, but the trade deficit's not a bad thing anyway. Like, reducing trade deficit should not be a concern, or at least, like, the end game goal should not be to reduce trade deficit. It can be an outcome of certain positive policy decisions, but it needs to be, like, specific. You don't want to just do anything whatsoever to reduce trade deficit, but if you do good policies, they will probably have the result of reducing trade deficit in certain industries, right? Like, if the United States overtakes China in producing computer chips, then yeah, we'll probably see a decrease in the trade deficit between the United States and China when it comes to computer chips, because more Americans would be buying American-made computer chips as opposed to Chinese-made ones. But simply trying to lower the deficit, and that is your end goal, is not a smart decision. However, a lot of economically inept retards, like our president, Donald Trump, believe trade deficit is bad because a deficit means less. It means to lose something or to be lesser than. Just like how Donald Trump hears national debt and he can't unassociate that from, like, personal debt. Like, Trump believes that the United States is going to have to file for bankruptcy, like default on our national debt. He doesn't quite understand how that works either. He sees it in, like, personal debt terms. And in that same way, a trade deficit, he sees in the same way that, like, a business owner sees, like, a deficit in their profits, right? He doesn't understand how to leverage these things in global trade. Most notably, the fact that we have an immense trade deficit with China means that we're one of China's biggest customers. Us, the consumer, are one of China's biggest customers. We always talk about how, ooh, war with China is so scary, but, like, why would China be incentivized to go to war with us if we're their biggest customer, if we're their number one trading partner? In fact, wouldn't it make sense for China to be highly invested in America to do well and to be successful so that Americans can have more money, more expendable income to buy Chinese-made goods? Like, logically, that follows for the, you know, growing, wealth-obsessed, development-obsessed China, right? Obviously, though, you know, Republicans don't think this way. They have no nuance. They only speak in trade war, winning, dominating the enemy, and they believe starting trade wars with our biggest allies is smart because it makes us look strong to idiots.
Is not decreased by half. We continue to incur massive amounts of debt. Our deficit continues to increase. If our deficit was cut in half, okay, we'd be in a different economic situation.
Once again, the national debt and trade deficit are not these catastrophic things. Like, they're not good, but they're also not bad. Like, I'd say they lean more towards being a negative thing than a positive, but it's more of a symptom of a problem. You know what I mean? America has a very service-based economy where the majority of workers in the United States do jobs for people. Like think, just performing a service, whether it be, working as a cashier, cutting lawns, cleaning cars, cleaning houses, doing putting the fries in the bag, some kind of service job is like 70 to 80% of jobs in America. We don't really make things in America anymore. But what we do a lot of is consuming things. We buy things that are made. And what economy makes things but doesn't really, consume as much? That would be China. And so we buy a lot of our shit from China. It's cheaply produced there. And so we're able to buy it, or I shouldn't say we, I should say retailers buy their stock at a premium, and then they sell their inventory to us once it comes into the country and they put it on shelves. The tariffs, Trump's dumbass fucking policy for tariffs, basically causes these retailers to have to pay more to ship their product into the country. And so, it costs more to stock the shelves, which means if you want to empty those shelves and put those things in your basket, it's going to cost you more, because who do you think's going to end up paying the price that Trump's now charging in the form of those tariffs? It's not the other country that pays the tariff. It's a tax. By nature, taxes are something that your government does to you as a citizen of your government. You don't pay taxes on a product you bought from another from a company in another country. You pay the taxes, tariffs, and other applied penalties for buying from another country that your government puts into place. You're paying more to a company so they can pay more to the United States government because you bought something that originates from another country. That is what a tariff is.
Situation right now. Okay, just more lies by Donald Trump. Now, what is the FBI doing with all of this? What's Kash Patel doing while we still have a killer, a school shooter on the loose after the FBI botched the investigation at Brown University? As we have so much going on in this country that's making us so much less safe. Kash Patel and his young girlfriend go on the Stephen Miller wife podcast. Stephen Miller's wife has a podcast, and Kash gets emotional describing how he and his girlfriend deal with people on social media who criticize their relationship. Play this clip.
On a personal level, of course, I wish we didn't have to deal with the attacks. Like, she should be out there touring and crushing it on the country music stage, as she always has been, and she shouldn't have to deal with the collateral consequence of just being the FBI director's girlfriend. But I think with the hypersensitive nature of the media, especially the social media space, people come at you because it takes me back to like when I first did an investigation of consequence, Benghazi or Russiagate or what have you. They always said it's going to be the loudest when you're over the target. And yeah, it's been the loudest for us in recent history.
And then
no one should ever let Kash Patel get away with those fucking glazing, cringe-ass children books he made about Donald Trump. The Plot Against the King, where he's the wizard Kash Patel fighting to unveil the evil plot to usurp King Donald Trump. I'm not joking. It's a children's book where Donald Trump is the king and Hillary Clinton is the evil queen trying to usurp King Donald Trump. And Kash Patel has to reveal the evil deep state conspiracy to save the king. It is the gayest thing you'll ever see.
Kash Patel and his girlfriend on Katie Miller's podcast say the following. Playing this clip.
Those things don't matter. She's touring, we're campaigning. She's also doing campaign and political stuff at the same time. So we just, like everybody else, got on planes, met where we could, made it a point to see each other either in Nashville and Vegas, and sometimes it ended up being in DC, or sometimes it's on the road where she was performing. And so you just make it happen if it's worth it, and it is.
With all this taking place as well, we should also note that the U.S. Coast Guard quietly enacted a policy downgrading swastikas and nooses from hate symbols to potentially devices. The manual is now in effect despite public outrage and warnings after the draft was revealed.
I can tell you, a lot of those Florida Coast Guard guys are going to love that.
Last month. So do you all recall when that story broke and the Trump regime denied it and said that's not the case? And then the Coast Guard admitted it, but then said, don't worry, that's not going to be the policy of course, will say that swastikas are hate symbols. Not anymore. Swastikas, nooses, they're viewed as potentially divisive, but no longer hate symbols. I often ask myself, with this Trump regime, with all they're doing to inflict pain on people, take away people's health care, make people's lives much worse, take away educational opportunities, you think about the ideas that they come up with when they're sitting around. Like, hey, here's a good idea. This is actually from the Trump regime. Let's take away the professional designation of nurses. Let's say that if you're a nurse, it's no longer a professional degree. Then they high-five each other. They're attacking nurses. Who sits around and does that?
And I can tell you this, as depressing as it may sound, there are a lot of nurses who love them some Donald Trump. That might not be the case anymore. There are a lot of Trump-loving nurses, and that's a bad move. Trump pissing off one of his core supporter bases.
Who sits around and says, you know what's missing? Swastikas, Confederate flags. Let's make those no longer hate symbols. And then they high-five each other. Let's take away the hepatitis B vaccine and spread lies about it and say that you should only get it at the age of 12, despite the hepatitis B vaccine reducing the hepatitis B in about 99% of cases, 99% decrease. So these are the despicable ideas from the Trump regime. And by the way, all Donald Trump wants to talk about, as we are on the verge of a war with Venezuela.
Dude, imagine how bad Trump's approval is going to get when the outbreaks start happening again, when we have COVID too. Like, all this is going down, everything else Trump is no doubt going to do that'll piss people off, and then we get COVID too. You know, COVID-1 literally tanked Trump's chances in the 2020 election and caused such a, like, the economy got so fucked by it, and everyone was so upset with how it was handled because COVID got to be so bad that Trump lost in basically a landslide to Biden. At least insofar as popular vote goes, Trump lost in a popular vote landslide to Biden, truly. And I don't think that's Biden's merit. I think that's Trump's failure that caused that. You know, like, people really didn't want any more Trump. And that's after a fairly stable 3 years of Trump initially, and then a really bad last year in his first term. We're starting term 2 as bad as his final year of term 1. Like, I don't know, guys. I think Trump is cooking his own shit right now.
Venezuela, you could view his post as a declaration of war, is his golden ballroom. Golden ball, building golden everywhere, gold, $400 million now. Here, play this clip.
For 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom, and we're giving them, myself and donors are giving them, free of charge, for nothing. We're donating a building that's approximately 400 million. I think I'll do it for less, but it's 400. I should do it for less. I will do it for less. But just in case I say 400, otherwise if I go $3 over, the press will say it costs more. I built under budget and ahead of schedule, right, Jason? Always.
Well, there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. We're going to keep covering this every step of the way. Hit subscribe right now. Let's get to 6 million.
Midas Touch does some pretty good coverage. I will say it's a little bit echo chambery, like super, like, you can tell they very much want to market towards their highly left-wing audience. It doesn't feel like their goal is to necessarily, like, bring people from the center or the left, or from the right into the left. It's more to, like, consolidate support from the left, which is fine. It's just, you know, sometimes I see, like, their channel overall, and it's like, man, you know, like this is clearly a channel meant for the left, you know what I mean? And nothing wrong with that. It's just an observation I made. A lot of progressive channels try to have that broader appeal. Midas Touch is very much a channel by the left for the left, if that makes sense. Anyway. I quite liked that coverage, though. And goddamn do I hope that Donald Trump continues to act a fool and ruin his own approval, because it is joyous to watch him lose the #1 thing in the world he values. I guess maybe next to money. And that being his clout. How much people love him and cheer for him and support him and see him as a winner. And now people don't like him. People don't see him as a winner right now, and I think that's getting to him more than he's letting on. At least I can only hope. Yeah, good old karma, my friends. Good old karma. Anyway, as you already know, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like down below. It really helps a ton. And comment. Keyline. Comment key lime if you want to let me know that you watched all the way till the end. That'll be the code word that tells me that you are a real Zan fan and you watched all the way to the end. And of course, be sure to join my fan Discord if you haven't already, and subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want to see more from me in the future. But with all that said, thank you for watching, as always, and I hope to see you in the next one.